welcome everyone to our Hiire Talks. Here we'll talk about life, about business, about career, but much more. And I always try to bring guests that really makes impacts in your life, that really makes the difference. And today I have a very, very special guest, Alexandre Vaz. Alexandre was my first CEO slash manager slash boss at Mercedes-Benz IO. One of the experience that really helped me to grow in my career. So I think, Alex, I will let you to introduce yourself because you do that much better than me. And I think that will be my first big question for you. If you can introduce yourself for everyone that doesn't know you yet in 2-3 minutes.
Okay, no, thank you for the invitation to participate in the podcast. So what can I say? So I'm an engineer with an MBA, so I always mix up in my life a bit what was technology and business. I study engineering and industrial management. I started working in IT consultant. Then I moved to a business consultant to BCG. And then I tried to mix it up both things. I went to Oracle, where I was trying to help customers and explaining what technology can do for their business. So in trying to help them find out a solution. For me, the next step was to create a startup on marketing automation and analytics. And at the time, I was trying to sell it to Mercedes, and that's how Mercedes showed up in the picture. And I failed in that part, but somehow they invited me to open the Mercedes-Benz Digital Lab here in Portugal. And then, as you mentioned, in the last year, I created Digital Lab, and that's what I'm doing right now. In the meantime, I had some other type of businesses. So I had a beer company where it was way too soon in the market, but I don't think Portugal was ready for craft beer at the time. And I do another two things. That's pretty much it in 2 or 3 minutes, Gonçalo.
Oh, that's great. Now you are more into wines, right? Not so much.
Yes. Now it's more the wine area, but that still needs to take off.
Okay. Still a secret.
It's still a secret.
Yeah, cool. Coming back to Mercedes, because I think that's one of the most interesting things. At least it's one of the most interesting things that we did together. What you would say that are the main reasons for a company like Mercedes to open a hub in Portugal, especially in 2017? There wasn't that many hubs at the time, and I think Mercedes was kind of a pioneer because after that BMW, Volkswagen, and other big corporates did the same. So why do you think that Mercedes did that decision 6 years ago?
Okay, so I was actually on the other side. So I was trying to convince them that to come to Portugal because the reasoning was if they would come to Portugal, then I can sell the company. So I was trying to get all the arguments on why to come to Portugal. You never know exactly what were the final reasons, but there's a few that we've discussed a lot of times, and actually I still use it in today's with Jay. So first is talent availability. And as you said, we were talking about 2017. So the argument that there was a lot of talent, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing was there was not that many large international companies as a competition. On the bad part, some of the arguments they said is like, why is that? Why is that nobody's going to Portugal? Is there an issue with the country? But so you need to prove that actually there was a lot of talent that should be better used. Second, cultural fit, and that's something that I've been seeing more and more, is that Portuguese actually have a really good fit with Eastern European countries, in this case with German. We understand each other, we can work well with each other, so that was the other part that I think was important. Compared with other countries, it's something not sure a lot of people know, but we have really good language skills. So most people speak English, and if you're going to compare it with some of our neighbors, actually we are in a much better state. Location, and you should always think that location is when you're trying to convince somebody to invest in Portugal, the best thing you can do is to bring them over, because that's when you convince them, because you're trying to convince stakeholders or shareholders to invest in somewhere, and they know that they need to go there every month, every 3 months. and they would prefer to choose a location that is nice to go. So sometimes the arguments are not only rational, they are also emotional, and that's actually a very important part. I would have to say cost, but you need to be careful with cost, because I try not to use it because for many reasons. First, because there are other cheaper locations than us still in Europe. Second, because salaries are going up, and that's a good thing actually. And third, because when you're trying to convince somebody to invest and you want to create a great hub, you cannot think that you're going to have a great hub and pay low salaries. So cost is still an advantage when compared with a country like Germany, but it shouldn't be the argument to convince somebody to come to Portugal for sure. And I think the last argument is also actually what it actually also make the difference when compared with the other countries is that when they decided to come over, they invite me to open the hub, and it helped that there was already somebody there. Meaning we, at the time, Lisbon in this case was competing with other European countries, and they were trying to get the arguments without having somebody to talk to directly that could open the hub. So I think that gave them a little bit more confidence that this could be successful. So it's never one reason; it's all a bunch of reasons, and you never know, because usually these decisions there's like 5, 10, 20 people involved. So, and all of them have different interests and all different visions on what they want to achieve. So all of these things are important in the end.
Yeah, agree, and I think you touched on the main ones, that usually it's location, talents, universities around Portugal, costs. But I think you touched in one that usually people don't touch, that is the emotional part. And I think Portugal has a lot of emotionals that we can give to people that help them to like to be here. And I always see with people coming from abroad that they come to Portugal, they come to our restaurants, they come to our city, and they love it. So I think on the emotional part, we have an edge comparing with a few other countries. But you also touched in another important point, that is you need to convince a lot of people with different type of expectations. Do you have like any tip or any advice? How would you convince 10 people that are in the same organization but with different objectives? How you merge them together and you help them to make the decision that you want?
That's a tough one. Well, I think that the most important part, and that's not as easy as it may seem, is to understand who are those people. And because sometimes you don't have visibility, right? You are talking with one or two or three people, and then there's a bunch of people on the back that will have a role on the final decision, and you don't know. So first part is to identify them. Second part is to understand what are their motivations, what are they trying to achieve. And it can be, if you're talking more with the finance area, they are much more worried about the cost and cost control part. If you're talking about the compliance part or the legal part, they will have a different thinking. If you're talking about with a department or an area that is thinking about what they need is speed, because they need to grow fast, because they are lacking talent and skills. Or another one, it's much more wants to focus on innovation, or at least in trying new technologies. So after you have, if you want a map of everybody involved, then you need to tell a story that needs to be true, of course, because else you'll be in trouble. But that applies to pretty much everybody. But honestly, the hard part is to identify everybody that is involved in the decision. And you can, and in the end, you can have everybody saying hi, but you need then the final one, that is the person that will sign the paper, to say yes. And so you need to spend a lot of time talking with all the different people until the decision is over.
Yeah, and sometimes there is one or two people that really influences who signs the papers, and you need to make sure that the trust is there. Cool, that's a very interesting approach, and this question wasn't on the script, so I think you gave a nice answer on it. And besides that, so afterwards, after the decision it's made, at Mercedes, what were the main challenge that we had, and how did we overcome that? I'm saying we because we did it together, so I know a couple of things, but probably if you want to talk about other type of challenge that you faced, will be great.
Okay. Actually, so I think that there was some type of challenge that companies usually have that we didn't have. So I'm kind of saying what was the good part is that we had a company that helped us out called Mercedes-Benz Portugal. So they are more focused on importing cars, but they were kind enough to help us with a lot of all the admin stuff that usually companies need to do. So for us, it was quite easier on that part because they take that part away from us. So two things: when you have this opportunity to create an app for a company like Mercedes, you think about, okay, what's the vision you want to achieve? This is a really great opportunity. So what we want to achieve is to create a great app with a great culture, with the best talent possible. And so one of the things that we did first, and if you remember, Gonçalo, is to define, like, we're just going to hire the best people. And we always said that the best people has three key characteristics, you say. So it's the knowledge, the current knowledge based on their past experience. Like if you are hiring somebody that goes out of college, you're expecting something. If you are hiring somebody that has 10 years experience, you are expecting another thing. Second part is the growth mindset, because we know that the world is changing so fast that you want people that grow with the company, with the needs of the company, the way the market is going. And third, and as important as the other one, it was always the fit, the cultural fit. We always not joke so much. We joked, but we didn't joke about it. It's no assholes allowed. So meaning, if we hire the people that actually will fit into the culture, everything it will be easy. And it's always it's not that we don't want everybody to be the same, but there needs to be a common denominator that says that people actually like to work with each other, like to learn, like to listen. And I always tell the story about a person like a more junior developer that said, I like to work here because senior people listen to me. Many times I'm not right, but they listen to me. So that's after you define that, then you find your first challenge. Okay, how am I going to recruit these people? So we need to create. And how are you going to recruit these people? It was all about creating a brand. And for us is what can we do that is different from every other company? And that's why we're starting to invest and create a brand by creating videos, or a bit that was a bit unusual. And I'm not sure if people saw it, but from doing interviews in an AMG being driven by a professional driver, doing interviews in Halloween, so with real candidates, it was something that actually it was very good for communicating the brand and positioning the brand. But also it did another thing, that it positioned the brand as that we know how to joke with ourselves. And that's the type of people that we wanted, people that actually appreciated a culture like we try to show it in the videos. So it was a bit risky, to be honest. The first video, probably most people don't know, it was a 360 videos around Lisbon. It was okay-ish from a result perspective, but what we learned from it is that this is a channel to communicate, but we need to transform it to be a little bit more direct. The first one demanded that we had a 360 browser, or if the phone allowed it, so it didn't work that well. But I think the challenge was it is how to make sure that we clearly knew what we wanted, and to be very strict about it. And there was a lot of discussions about it, saying we just hire the people we like. KPIs are important, but are not the most important part. The most important part is that we recruit the right people. And second, the challenge was how to create a brand very fast, doing something that nobody has ever done it. So I think for me, it was the two biggest ones, because all the challenge that came after you creating a great culture and growing the team, it's actually become much easier, and they are not so much of a challenge. After we recruit the first 10, 20 people, and they were really good, and they were really amazing, everything is easy. You don't have the typical politics or the typical issues that most company has. So as long as you start strong and you make sure that you don't miss, everything will be much easier in the future.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think the building the brands and making sure that you have the right culture are also very tied together, because if you build a great brand, you attract great people. If you have great people, you can build a great brand around it. And of course, that I'm biased, but I think we did it pretty well. And I think, yeah, like you said, the first video wasn't so known, but the second one on Web Summit with the car was super known. After 2 years, people were still talking about, and I think was very risky at the time, but ending up to have a lot of results afterwards. And even though that Mercedes already had a brand in Portugal, nobody knew us about building tech. And I think on that right now, everyone knows Mercedes-Benz IO from being one of the top companies to work in Portugal. And I think we had a lot of saying on that matter. That's why I'm quite surprising with your new adventure, Jay. Not surprising, but curious also about it. Of course, that we already spoke a lot about this, but I am also very interested to show our audience what you have been doing. And right now we have almost 20 people watching the event. So if you guys have any questions that it's related with the topic, feel free to drop a comment. Anyway, we'll have time for questions in the end. So feel free also to bring your questions in the middle if you feel that makes sense. But my next question to Alex, it's basically right now you have now a company that is helping other enterprises to open their own entities here in Portugal. What made you do it, and what was your experience so far with it? With well, a little bit over 1 year now, right? That
Yep.
just
Yeah, we did the first app, just did 1 year right now. No, it was so when all these big companies, all these international companies, or usually the non-tech, as they don't have the technology as the core business, are trying to do digital transformation, try to move their core business more into this digital side. And all my past experience, both as a consultant in the IT and the business world, and also creating an app, teach me that sometimes it's slower than it should be, or it could be. And at the time, after Mercedes, we were trying to thinking how can we create hubs, or how can we speed up digital transformations in a different way. So what Jay is a company builder. So we open apps for customers in a model that we call the BOT, build, operate, transfer. It means that each customer, it's its own company with its CEO, etc. And we build them according to the customer, but the app, while it's being built, while it's being growing, belongs to Jay, doesn't belong to the customer. It does just have one client, but it belongs to us. It means that we can control a lot of the things that usually prevent a fast growth. Like we define the, I don't know, the good example is always the salary bands. We define how the interviews are done. We can define the culture. We can define what we want as a policy for the office. So it means that we can be much faster in doing things that usually if you do it inside a large company, it would take many more time to make any type of decisions. And so we are doing it for Publicis for 1 year. This has been our focus so far, and it's been really interesting and great. So very fun. Again, using a lot of the learnings from past experience, and hopefully we'll be doing it more next year for other companies.
Yeah, I imagine this was the first pilot, and a lot of new ones will.
I don't call it a pilot, but,
so a good first experience at least.
Really cool. It's totally different when you have a total control of the things. I cannot show you today the office, but it's like and to be honest, today I think there's just a couple of people working here, but it's still an important part. And we can also talk about it if you want. but how to make sure that people come to the often here and there. But that's a different topic.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's an important topic nowadays. I think making sure that we have the people engaged. It's one of the main struggles that I think a lot of companies had this year and they will have next year. And I think Jay is creating a very unique culture because you are working right now for Publicis, but you also have your own like J culture for what I saw. And I think that's a very important mix to have in order to engage people and making sure they thrive and they help our clients to go further. So I think that's quite nice. We have been talking here a lot about Portugal, about Europe, and I think there is a lot of, even though that we are a small continent, there is a lot of different type of cultures, different type of mindsets, and I'm curious to understand how you approach this type of different cultures in the workplace. I know that we at Mercedes also hired a lot of people from abroad, but we also had a lot of interactions with Germany, and I think the egos are different, the perspectives are different. So for you, what is important to make sure that, okay, the culture, it's one, but then we need to respect and accept different cultures and how we can leverage that as well, because it helps us to grow faster and have different perspectives.
Yeah, I think we Portuguese as a culture are very welcoming, and it helps in integrating other cultures, and also it helps when you actually talking with other cultures. So one of the things that for me it was a big surprise, and especially when working with German companies, and no, actually it was not talking about Mercedes, is that they always say no, we prefer to work with companies in Portugal than the ones in Eastern Europe. And for me, it was a really surprise that we could have a better fit with companies in Germany than the neighbors. But and I think it's a bit it. We are quite open and receive well. And so when you're trying to create a company that has people from different countries, I think this normal tendency to respect, it's actually a very good thing, and it helps out for people to make a decision to come to Portugal or to work to Portugal. Again, it also helps that the language skills exist. I don't think the Spanish are that different, maybe, but they tend to talk more in Spanish than in English. So it's an issue when you're trying to create an international environment in a company. But yeah, I think I think that part is I don't have it's my limited experience. That's what it tells me, and it's working very fine. Because what you want is create a culture where people help each other, and they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to help the company actually change for the better, and for that. It says maybe it's more important the people that we hire than where they're coming from in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because if the mindset it's there and they are aligned with the mission and they are motivated to do it, doesn't really matters where they are coming from, but really matters what they are doing and how they interact with other people. Talking about that, do you have any future plans for Jay that you can share with us? Anything exciting that you can share, or it's still a secret?
No, sorry. That's the secret. We need to wait for next year. No, I think there's some interesting potential clients. I think we know that it's always, as we discussed in the beginning, processes take a long time. It can take 1 year for making a decision, because again, a lot of stakeholders involved in this type of companies. I think what we are seeing, and I can tell you that, is some companies are becoming a little bit more cautious in making these decisions. They are trying to understand where the economy is going, and that can help or didn't help in some cases. So we are seeing our opportunities getting a little bit more delayed, but on the other side, we are getting a new opportunity because of this, where people think maybe it's time that I create and have a better control if I have my digital skills all in one location. So I cannot share customers. It's always international large companies, but hopefully until next summer, let's see if we have a new customer for Jay.
Okay, very, very good to hear, and I hope it goes well. We always know that with big companies, decisions take some time, and sometimes we have some step backs, but we are always there to push them and to make sure they are also happy with their decisions. So very looking forward to see it. And Alex, if you have right now clients or future prospects that you need to advise why they should open a hub in Lisbon, but how they should open a hub in Lisbon, which type of recommendations or advice would you give to them?
I think you need to understand the market. So what are the skills that exist? Sometimes I think we are a great market, except when you're trying to get a very, very specific skills. But to understand the market and what are the talent available. So for the tech stack that you want to use, that's all important. And second part is to understand what is the salaries in Portugal. Sometimes, for some reason, people think that salaries are really low, and it's not true. So understand how much it will cost. Third part is understand the locations. Understand if you want to go to Lisbon, to Porto, to Coimbra, to Aveiro, to Braga, or whatever. So understand that there are differences, and you might get a few things on one location and others in a different location. Second, I think it's really, really important to get someone local to help you out. And of course, it can be a partner SJ, but or is somebody that has done it in the past. It will, because if somebody understands the market, how it operates, where to talk, I think it really, really reduces the risk and increases the speed of setting up the app. Also, and not if your question is going not why Portugal, but where to go, understand what are the location risks. I think we are living in a strange world right now. And for that, it's something that Portugal is quite safe. We are quite far away, luckily, from some of the things that are happening in the world. Also understand the cultural fit, if it's good to what you want to achieve, language skills. All of the things are the areas where companies should approach when trying to decide where to open their app or their new operations.
Yeah, I think those are very important arguments, especially the salaries. We always struggle with that, and usually when someone is not from Portugal, they always think that the talents and the spaces and everything else is cheaper until they come to a restaurant or until they see the renting prices in Lisbon, for example, and they started to change their minds. But also having a local person, I completely agree with you, that is a game changer, because that will help you to have connections, that will help you to know the people in the market, that will help you to know where the office makes sense to be. And I think that's a very, very important thing, that some companies really think they can do it without that person. But I think the speed of having a partner or having the right person since the beginning really changed the perspective. Cool. We are reaching out one of the most exciting parts of our conversation. That is the 3 questions that we make to every single guest. The first one, you already heard a lot of versions of it, but I think it's your favorite. So let me start with this one, Alex, that I'm very curious about your answer. That is, what annoys you on other people?
Yeah, I should have seen this one coming because you always do that question, right? I don't like intellectual dishonesty, and it means that using arguments in a way to fit whatever you want to achieve, and then if you want to achieve another thing, you just change, you use the argument in a different way. So that's something that really, really annoys me. I think that's proper, and I would go into a discussion because of that. Intellectual dishonesty.
The person.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yes.
They will suffer
No,
if they do it. Yeah, no. Just to give some context as well. So usually I did this question on interviews when I was doing interviews with Alex at Mercedes. He always laughed at me. But now he's answering the questions, so it's a different share, Alex.
It's a good question. I always like the question actually in an interview because nobody is expecting.
Yeah. And I think it tells you a lot about who is in front of you and how they think, and really what they don't like or what annoys you on other people.
It's a different way to make a question,
Yeah.
and we use that a lot.
Are you using that today?
No, I'm not using that much.
Okay, otherwise I need to charge royalties.
I know you're going to say that. So.
Just kidding. This one you can use. Cool. Next one. What is the person that, being dead or alive, would you like to have a lunch or a dinner with?
Okay. Can it be more than one, or?
Two. For you, you can choose two.
It depends, right? So, and so the most basic answer to that is Steve Jobs, and just for the sake to try to understand how he operates, if you, at least I read his biography, and it doesn't seem to be a great guy to hang out, but it would be interesting to understand how he operates day to day, how he's able to implement all the ideas that he has. Another one could be, I don't know, Nelson Mandela, just to try to learn how can you be so positive after being more than 20 years in jail. It could but maybe on the ones that are living, I would be curious to have lunch with Schwarzenegger, not because I actually like the type of thing. I don't see myself doing the things he did, but it's amazing if you see his career, how much he changed. It's quite impressive, and so I would like to understand, to have lunch, dinner with him, just to try to see how he thinks, because it's very, 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 very interesting. And maybe I'll go like Malcolm Gladwell, because I really like his books and his podcast. And it's, if you don't know it, you should know it. Malcolm Gladwell. Go check it out. The podcast is amazing, best podcast ever, and you should. And it is a curious guy. He looks at things and tries to understand them in ways that nobody else does it, and that actually gives you a different perspective on how the world operates. So he has a lot of interesting books, Outliers, Blink, blah blah blah. The podcast is Revisionist History, and I would really, really strongly advise, and it would be really interesting to have lunch or dinner with him.
Okay. I will check it out. I think I already learned something about the next author that I will explore. I think the first two were kind of obvious, but the last two were very interesting, or at least are not so common. So thanks a lot for sharing, and I think that's always good for our audience to know. So we are coming to an end in this conversation. I have one last question to Alex, but if any one of you has any questions, let me know. We have here a comment from Coralj, a very good one, that we both work together, and I think Alex built one of the best cultures to work in Portugal from scratch. So I think this is a very nice compliment for us to be in the finish line of our conversation. Not sure, Alex, if you have any comment regarding this.
Just say hi to João.
Exactly. Cool. So let's go to our last question. So if you could give any advice to your 18 years old self, what advice would you give to the small Alex?
It's open a startup while you are in college. No, a startup is like, so at least I think you learn a lot in your life with different things, like, taking out the formal educations. I learned a lot in consulting because it's a way to speed up your learning curve, because you in a short period of time you actually you see a lot of different companies and you interact with a lot of smart people. After that, for me, the second biggest learning, it was in the startup world, because you need to do everything from scratch by yourself. There's not really, and you're trying to find your way. So usually the consulting part it's hard to do it while in college, but you can always try to create a startup. Even if it doesn't work, I will guarantee that you will learn a lot. So if I would go back in time, I would try to create something at that time, and I think it would help out, to be honest. So if you can do it, please do it.
That's a good point. That sometimes I debate with myself as well, because we both start like in the corporate world and in like big organizations, you more than me. However, I think that time that we were in corporate gave us so much edge regarding other entrepreneurs that just started a company that never worked in a consulting or in a company before. So do you really think that starting a startup without experience is the best way to become very good in creating companies, or do you think that your way was slightly better?
And I don't think there's a guideline. Really, I think it will always depend. What I was saying is, while I was in college, and that was the advice I would give to myself, as you asked, is like, just try to create a startup at a time, because probably you have a little bit more time and you will learn things that would be useful later on. Even if after college I would join the corporate world. That was a bit more the advice going into that directions. I think it helps to have both views, of course, to experience both areas. But it always depends on the person. On if you have a startup that actually starts to grow, that's great. So you don't need the other type of experience. What I think, and that's something you and me discussed a lot of times, Gonçalo, was always about explaining what is your career, what is the story for yourself. So, and I remember we received a lot of CVs, and we interviewed thousands of people. Is for people to explain what they did, right? So they went first to this company, to this company, to this company, and many times people cannot explain why they made that move. So what do they gain in making that move? And that's, for me, the more tricky part. It's not about if you go to a startup or a corporate world or whatever, but there is a reason why you go from company A to company B, and to be able to explain what is your story, I think it helps out a lot in trying actually when you're applying to a job, and to understand what are you actually achieving. So I don't think some people are quite good in reaching, I want to reach this goal, and they do it. I'm not that type of person, for instance, but what I did, for me, I can tell my story. Like, I try in the IT world. I said I don't want to only focus in the IT. I want to also to do something in the business. So I went to BCG. I had the business part, and then I put it together in Oracle. And then after I said, okay, I was having the feeling to create something of my own. That's why you created a startup, And then from that, I had the opportunity to create a startup within the Mercedes environment. And now next, I'm picking all that experience from corporate startup business and technology, and helping big companies creating their own labs. So I think at least I can tell a story how things happen. My goal was not to reach where I am. It was not very clear. It was never that clear, but at least every step I can justify why I went from A to B to C. And I think everybody should have that understanding, or at least being able to explain what are they doing in their career, what are they trying to get when they change jobs, change roles, or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, to have really a storyline, why you left one company, why you joined another one, and also why the experience that you had before, it's really impacting the next one that you'll have, like you did. So I think that's a very interesting component. We have a few questions from the crowd. First, we have Sergio. In the beginning, when you first reached to Mercedes, did you already have a team here ready to start?
No, so because I failed to sell my startup, I didn't have a team, so I had to recruit from scratch. actually the first people that joined it was Gonçalo, but I already, at least in from a contract perspective, had a few interviews. So trying to get to the network and trying to get as many people or many CVs as possible and start doing the interviews. So it was actually no team at the beginning. So I remember going to the first day to the office. I think you were 2 weeks after. And for 2 weeks I was alone in a big space in second home, trying to make things happen. So it was a very interesting experience.
I know that you didn't have a team, but you had so many contacts already that the team was already being built even before I think you talk with Mercedes, because I think that's what happens when you already have experience. You get to know people, you know more or less this person could fit here. So you already had like a perspective at least of some people that you'd like to bring, and then of course we brought the rest together. But I think having that network and that plan was also key to be faster in the beginning.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. And then we have another question from Inês. So for companies growing their tech hubs in Portugal, what is your forecast regarding the PT tech market next year? So same flows as this year, or a bit less or more dynamic? So Inês is very curious to know about your insights. I can share mine afterwards, but I think we can start with you, Alex.
I think the market overall, no, I'm not. I think it's going to slow down a bit. I think companies are getting a little bit more cautious, and tech hubs also. And so, if you're thinking from the recruiting perspective, you are never in a good stage, right? Because when the market is very active, people moved a lot, but because there's so much competition, it's hard to get people. When you go into a more slower market, people are more cautious in changing jobs. So although there's not so many competition, you have a little bit more effort on trying to convince people of why changing job. But what we are seeing right now is that the market is getting a little bit more slow, and at least the forecast for me it will be less dynamic. There will be less companies hiring than in the last few years, for sure. Not sure if you agree, Gonçalo.
If we compare it with last year, I agree. So I think we won't get something like last year anytime soon. But I see that at least so far at Hiire, for example, we never had so many positions open as right now. So I think the market pick up a little bit comparing with the beginning of the year. And I know that won't be like super huge demand of companies, but will be people are a bit more confident than they were 6 months ago. At least this is the impression that I got from my clients and my candidates. But the problem persists because we have 2 wars going on. We have economics still a bit shady. We have inflation, so there is still a lot of signs that doesn't help us to make sure that we'll have a hyper growth. And I think the hyper growth won't happen. But I think the companies will be, like Alex shared, more careful. But I think some companies or some industries are picking up, and some other companies are not picking up. So I think right now the market is very confusing on this way, because depending on your industry, you could be growing in a steady way, or your industry might be declining slightly. And then we have, of course, other type of outliers like AI that is booming. So I think on all of this creates the mess that I believe that we are having right now. So it's very hard to say, yes, we will grow for sure, because we have so many industries and so many variables that we cannot control. That I think will be a very, I would say, dynamic year, because there is no clear vision about how the year will be, and will be dynamic for the recruitment teams, because we'll have these up and downs here and there.
Yeah, and I think what happened last year, the last few years, there was more growth than maybe it was sustainable for companies. So that's why you saw so many layoffs last year or this year actually, because I think teams grow bigger than they were required. And also, if the numbers don't reach, companies start to reduce teams. And I don't think this will happen next year. I think companies, when they hire, is because they actually need the people to be there. So that way, I think it will be. I think we are going to see a different type of dynamics. But but it's cyclical. It always goes up and down. So maybe we'll spend 2 or 3 years like that, and hopefully it will get better again in a couple of years.
Agreed. So we are coming to an end. Sergio and Inês and Corales, thanks a lot for your questions and comments. Was a pleasure to be here with you. Also, a big thanks to you, Alex, for having the time to speak with me and with our crowds. I hope you enjoy the event. If you have any questions for me or for Alex, feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn. We will keep our lives once a month, so expect one very interesting one in December. I hope you had fun and you learned something on this conversation, and I hope you have a good week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the invite, Gonçalo. Cheers.